granniopteryx, she knows the truth, she's linking every link.
Hello. A while ago, this present Labour government was trying to impose an Islamophobia law, but they withdrew it because of the collective intake of breath, even from their own members, about the perception that it was a blasphemy law which applied solely to Islam. At the moment, the project is in abeyance for reworking, they say, but I have an idea that the government aren't going to bring it back because they've suddenly realised that they don't need to pass any laws of that type. Why should they go through the aggro of putting a contentious bill through Parliament when they can outsource speech control to the various ideologically captured professional organisations that have turned many of the professions in this country into backslapping boys' clubs which allow membership only for those people who say the right thing? The BBC is a good example, but now I'm going to be telling you about the case of Patrick Lee, the man who said too much and was expelled by his professional organisation, the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries. Yeah, the Faculty of Actuaries expelled him for Wrongspeak about Islam. And I'm Granniopteryx. Please like this video, please share it, please subscribe. Again, if you're on YouTube, just check you still are subscribed and click the notification bell. That helps stop YouTube from desubscribing you. Also, if you want to help me financially, that's lovely. Hay costs more in the winter because the horses aren't out in the field so much. And the methods whereby you can contribute to my channel are in the description. All right, let's get on with it. Okay, Mr. Lee tweeted that unreformed Islam is problematic for Western liberal democracies, and it took a tribunal to decide that that's a protected belief under the Equality Act 2010. So the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries, which I shall refer to henceforth as the IFOA, is what is called a professional body. And I want to be clear, it's not the sort of professional body that hangs about under lampposts. The IFOA is an organisation which supports and regulates actuaries. Just in case you don't know what an actuary is a sort of super accountant cum fortune teller who assesses risk management for insurance companies, building companies, financial institutions, government planning, pensions, and just about anything in between. So they're quite important in the financial services industries. Anyway, to business. It turns out that this elite professional body, which I have to say, I have to say, is obviously a paragon of moral rectitude and has nothing to do with saleable morality, decided that one of its members, Patrick Lee, was bringing them into disrepute because he tweeted, as I said, unreformed Islam is problematic for Western liberal democracies. This was in the 2020s when people were still tweeting. It seems that although Mr. Lee has had 30 years of unimpeachable probity as an actuary, his opinions about Islam posed a moral problem for the IFOA. And a member of the IFOA executive saw Mr. Lee's social media output and made a complaint about him. That was in September 2020. And this was followed, coincidentally, of course, nobody had told them. It just happened that this was followed by an external complaint from a charity called the Islamophobia Response Unit, which is, as I said, a charitable body which most certainly doesn't have any connection to questionable morality or lampposts. After the complaint by the member of the executive and the subsequent entirely coincidental complaint by the Islamophobia Response Unit, the IFOA decided that action had to be taken. They do have a royal charter which allows them to impose a fine of up to £10,000 on members who have in some way infringed the rules. And so they imposed a fine on Mr. Lee of £22,667, which, I don't know, I'm not an actuary, but that seems to be a bit more than £10,000, and I don't know how they managed that. But yeah, they did. Whatever. They not only imposed a nearly £23,000 fine on Mr. Lee, but they also suspended him for 2 years. Now, that's probably even more egregious than the fine, because jobs for actuarial services routinely demand that the applicant is a member of a professional body. So suspension meant that Mr. Lee was not only going to be £23,000 down, but he'd also not be getting any work. In other words, the IFOA were erasing him for Wrongspeak. They were trying to drive him out of the profession and out of the work for which he was qualified. After which, I suppose, they thought he'd probably get himself a job as a dustman and go away. As I said, this is something the government has been trying to do since they got in, but who needs to bother passing laws when professional bodies like the IFOA have taken up the torch and run with it all on their own account? Oh, just a minute, somebody at the door. The dog loves that postman. All right, so where was I? Why should the government try passing a law when professional bodies are already imposing their own version of the law? And the IFOA isn't the only one. As I've said, the BBC has become notorious for its imposition of right speak. And in the case of the IFOA, well, you have to remember that its members are involved with financial services, many of which would have to do with institutions in the Middle East. Of course, I wouldn't dream of suggesting the IFOA is a professional body that has to do with saleable morality. Of course not. That being the case, I find it very puzzling that a professional body to do with assessing risk in financial matters might suddenly find itself all hot under the collar when one of their members expresses criticism of the philosophy of Islam. You'd think that would have nothing to do with the IFOA, wouldn't you? As you'll see, there was a tribunal case about it that established Mr. Lee was exercising his legal right to his opinions. And the case hasn't yet wound up, but he has at least partially been vindicated when they said it's a protected belief under the Equality Act. Mr. Lee described traditional Islamic beliefs as incompatible with Western values. His arguments included that they justify violence against non-believers, promote unequal legal status for women, impose the death penalty for apostasy, blasphemy and homosexuality, and reject the separation of religion and state. The tribunal found in his favour. But that doesn't solve the problem of professional bodies literally taking the law into their own hands. The IFOA is by no means the only one. And one minor victory in battle isn't the whole war, is it? So there you are, the outsourcing of speech controls in professional bodies. I think we're going to see more and more of these cases coming up over the next, months and years. And we should all, keep an eye out for it, and we should all be prepared to stand our ground, of course. Right, till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.